Ever felt those awkward vibes when religion and money come up? You're not alone. Welcome to Yahweh's Money, the podcast where we tackle the crossroads of faith and finance. I'm Shay Cook, an accredited financial counselor and the CEO and founder of Crusaders for Change, LLC.
And I'm Vanessa McNelley, accredited financial counselor and COO of Crusaders for Change. Join us on our journey as we discuss topics like tithing, saving, and conquering debt through religious perspectives. Let's get started.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Yahweh's Money. Hey Vanessa, how are you today?
I am good. How are you, Shay?
I'm good. I'm excited to talk about helping or enabling. I think we talk about this a lot in many conversations you and I have had over the years, but in family, it can get deep and crazy sometimes because we all do it.
Right. And I think you and I have a lot of experience in this realm too.
Yeah, we do. Well, y'all, in this episode titled Helping and Enabling, which is which, we're delving into a tricky question. When does helping someone turn into enabling? We'll explore how our financial generosity and support can reflect God's love, but also when it might cross a line into fostering dependency or even enabling poor choices. Through scripture, personal insight, and practical advice, will help you discern how to give wisely and responsibly while honoring your own boundaries and faith. So let's figure out how to help others without hurting them or ourselves in this process. So here's a stark reminder from Matthew 7:6. Do not give dogs what is sacred. Do not throw your pearls to pigs. If you do, they may trample them under their feet and turn and tear you to pieces. Oh my goodness. This verse encourages us to use our best judgment about when and how to give. Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah. And that's a great visual too, honestly, to
Yeah,
think about.
very good visual. It's
Because
kind of
it really
creepy, actually.
matters, who we
Yeah,
give what to, because they see it as something great or something not. So
yeah,
I think that's a
true.
really good reminder from the beginning. Yeah.
I know.
But first, what's the difference? What's the difference in helping and
Mm,
enabling? So, helping is supporting somebody through a temporary hardship with the
mhm.
goal of empowering them. So, that's not something that's going to last forever. And then
Yeah.
enabling is providing ongoing assistance that allows someone to avoid responsibility or continue harmful behaviors. So,
Mm.
thinking about both of these, I can think of example after example of someone who's enabling somebody else. And I think we go through this a lot with our own families and then a lot with our clients.
We do, we do, and
Yeah.
I know I'm guilty of enabling a lot. And when I was coming up and I was younger, I enabled a lot because I didn't know any better. I didn't know the difference. I don't even think I knew what enabling meant. I think I learned that in therapy or something like you're enabling, or my husband might have said it. But then you start to realize, like, yeah, I'm really not helping these people. We are, like it says, continuing they are continuing harmful behaviors. We are too, if we're constantly helping somebody or enabling somebody and not helping them with the goal to empower them. It can be really tricky, as we stated already.
It really is. And if you think about that verse again, and you think about something that we worked so hard for, and if we're giving it to somebody as, as helping and just a temporary gift, they might see it as the same way we do. But if it's something that they're getting all the time, they're going to see it as nothing. And it's just
Mm,
another handout, some more money. Oh, it's nothing to this person. But the reality of it is, it can be something that's really special or sacred to us that we're giving
mm.
up.
That is so true. And that could
Yeah,
be anything, right? Time, money,
exactly.
and just, yeah, we're plenty of stories. I would love to hear a story before we move on to you
Yeah, gosh.
enabling somebody.
Oh, there's so many stories.
I know.
We all know the good story about a Jeep that I purchased for an
Oh my
ex, but
God. Was that really enabling?
I don't know if that was enabling or not. But
Yeah.
I think I've gone above and beyond quite a few times in my life, and not known where to kind of stop and set those boundaries.
Mm,
I think that's been one of my big problems is the boundaries.
yeah.
But I know growing up, I have a brother that I don't really talk about a lot. And, we grew up in the same household, we had the same parents. But my entire life, it was poor little brother's name. And that's how he was referred to. So it was Vanessa and poor little brother, which I think really led to this enabling of,
Mm.
my parents and my grandparents and everyone around him, because it automatically put this picture in your head that there was something sad, or he needed extra or needed more. And to this day, it's been a situation where it's been an enablement versus being able to just help and let go. And it's turned into something that's been expected his entire life. So that's been something that I've dealt with on the outside, kind of watching. But it's, yeah, yeah. But when you can add those words in, poor little so and so,
Hmm.
or bless their heart, or those words that we say, I think it automatically puts a picture in our head of, oh, they need something, and oh, it's not their fault, and oh, they're going to do better next time. And that's not always the case.
That is so true. And especially you and I being the oldest, that plays a
Mm-hmm.
lot into it too. We just come into this world as older children having this responsibility. And then you're there to take care and support your young siblings. And then as you get older and you start working first, making more money first, whatever situation may be,
Right.
you've always been in that caretaker parental role. And
Yeah.
that carries on until adulthood. And then they continue to use it. It's like, hold up, I'm not your parent. You got other parents, but you also need to learn from this because you are growing up and becoming an adult. And that's where I say it's definitely been a boundaries problem for me. I didn't know. I've always been that second mama to my sister
Mm-hmm.
and brother. And then even when your parents start asking you for money, which I've gone through that too, it's like, wow,
Right.
everybody thinks Shay is responsible. And I know I shared this before. I had to close down the bank of Shay like over a decade ago because it was constantly people asking me for money, not
Right.
even family, some even friends, just, oh, I'm in a bad position. Can you help me pay my electric? Can you help me pay this? And it's like, okay, after a while, that you have to take responsibility. And it's
You
not my
do.
responsibility to take care of you.
Exactly. And it turns into something that is not just a one off, it turns
Mm,
into an expectation.
yes.
And I really think that's where that enabling comes into play, is when it's
Mm-hmm.
an expectation. It's like, oh, well, I'm still going to buy these shoes because so and so will help me with my power bill.
Yeah.
And it's finding that, that person that will feel sorry for us, or, help us because they have extra. And we're like, oh, it's okay. They've got it. It's not a big deal to them. When the reality of it is a big deal, and it should be a big deal. And it's one of those situations where you're not able to grow up and be able to handle your own situation. And
Mm.
I always say, I think we have a lot of clients that do this with their kids. And it's like, what's going to happen one day when you're not there?
Yeah.
What is going to happen? Because you've not taught them how to provide and take care of themselves. And when you're not there, all of a sudden, there's going to be no backup plan.
Exactly. That's what my
Yeah.
husband says to my daughter all the time. We need to prepare our daughter for when we're not here,
Right. Right.
And so, yeah, she might be able to fall back on us now, but even now, it's like,
Exactly.
no, you need to figure it out. You're of age.
Yeah.
You're working, and all that, and eventually you're gonna have to move out and take care of yourself. But if Dad and I pass away, and when you'll be able to take care of yourself. Yeah.
Exactly. And that is such a gift you can give your kids.
Mm-hmm.
It is a
Mm-hmm.
huge gift. And, I still think there's so much stigma around financial
Oh Lord, so
struggles.
much stigma. Yeah.
And, culturally too, it discourages us from actually having those conversations and talking about those struggles. And that can lead to repeatedly asking for private help. We know the
Mm.
person we can go to. We don't have to say anything to anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody else has to know. But we don't talk about these things. And if we would talk about them, we'd realize other people are having the same struggles.
Everybody's having some kind of
Yeah,
struggle.
yeah.
Yeah.
And we can
Yeah.
learn from each other. That's
We
the other
really
part of that.
can. This point is so amazing because even though my mom, I'm gonna put my parents on blast, but as I always do in these episodes, there's certain people in my family that can't hold water, as they would say back in the day. So you tell them something about, and they're like, so and so that asked me for money, this and that, So it was never really private, which is sad,
Hmm.
on that part. But on the other end, you're like, no, we should all be talking about this. We should sit down and say, okay, what is the problem? Do you need to learn how to manage money? Do you bad with credit? Whatever, savings, whatever. We need to be having these conversations. And I don't know why we have the stigma. I do know why. We're not going to talk about it on here, but there's some systematic issues around that. But still, yeah, it could be a lot. And stigma is real in a lot of different areas, not only money, but That's why people
Yeah.
are committing suicide. They lose hope. I mean, the list goes on. Yeah.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And if we would have these conversations, we might have some more accountability there too,
Mm-hmm.
because everybody kind of knows. And it's like, well, I don't want them judging me, but I could use a little extra nudge sometimes, like, well, should you be going out to eat, or those type of things too. Or
Yeah.
somebody might say, I'm going to do this with you, and we can be accountability for each other. And
Mm.
having somebody to walk through that with is amazing. Even if they don't have to, if somebody chooses to walk through that with you
Yeah.
and do things the way you're having to do them, I mean, that's a true friend or a family member right there.
It really is. And it's all
Yeah,
about the journey anyway. So we don't see
exactly.
about the journey on social media. We always see about the end result. I got $1
Hmm.
million. I bought a house, a car. What about all the stuff you had to do to get up to all of the hard work? I know when Nate and
Exactly.
I bought our first house, our family was like, oh my God, how can they afford this? Or why they do this? And not even how can we afford the house, but all the stuff that we did afterwards. And
Right.
it's like, we worked hard for this. We saved, that. And I hated having to state that over and over
Yep.
because it's like, oh, it was just handed to us. No, it wasn't. Like, I worked for
Right.
this.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and people don't see that. They don't see
Mm,
those things, just like you were saying. And they don't see that, you stayed at home 6 nights that week.
mm,
And they don't see that, you clipped coupons and you did all these
exactly.
things behind the scenes, that's nobody's business, honestly.
Yeah, but it's a
But
sacrifice and discipline and
exactly.
self control that you have to have in order to achieve these great things.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
everything that you have to work for is going to require some kind of sacrifice.
Yep. So
Some kind of
true.
sacrifice, yeah. And then also helping in a lot of times is, it's a cultural norm for a lot of people, and it may be your duty rather than a choice. And this
Yeah.
happens in a lot of cultures, but especially in Latin American cultures, in Asian and South Asian cultures. Those are the biggest cultures that have this as part of it. But I think to an extent, a lot more cultures have this, where
Mm-hmm.
it's expected that you give, and sometimes you're expected to take everyone else's needs into account before your own.
Mm,
And I think we see that a lot of times when we have immigrants who come to the US,
mm-hmm.
and the family automatically thinks, ooh, they're going to be rich. They got all this money coming in. But they forget and they don't understand how much it costs to live
mm,
here. I mean, gosh, I had a client one time. He was from Kenya, and he came over with his wife and his 2 children, military personnel, and he would not eat dinner at night. So he had enough money to send home to his
mm,
family. And that is a sacrifice, to not be able to
totally.
feed yourself so you can send money back to your family so they can have nice things. And it wasn't even just to feed his family, it was so they could have nice things.
Mm,
And the family never saw that sacrifice. And they just thought,
wow.
oh, he can afford it. He can afford that. But the reality of it is sometimes people are put in those positions where there's no choice. It
Yeah.
is just an expectation.
And I would add not only a cultural norm, but also I guess maybe a sexist or sex gender norm is females, women. We put a lot of things we are taught like you come second, third, fourth, you take care of your family, your community,
Hmm.
everything else, then you take care of yourself. So I know even having my child, I remember my grandmother like, why you ain't gonna get your hair done, or why you ain't gonna buy no clothes and stuff. Like I was wearing old stuff and doing it because it was all about taking care of my child at the time. Like it took me 2 to 3 years to understand like it ain't just about her. Like
Right,
you need to
right.
take care of yourself too. But that's what I saw my mother do, other mothers do. They put themselves
Hmm.
last in a
Hmm.
lot of
Hmm.
situations, not only in motherhood but in partnerships and jobs and things.
Right.
List goes on. And so yeah, it's a gender norm as well.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
it's really harmful when you
it
come into that
is.
place where you realize what you've been doing,
Mm-hmm.
and you kind of wake up and it's like, whoa, wait a minute. It's okay to take care of me, and it's okay to feel
Yeah,
like I'm important, because if you take care of yourself, you are a better version of yourself for everyone
yeah,
else. And we forget that. We
yeah.
really forget that. And I find myself kind of falling back in those roles often,
Often.
because it's a hard cycle to break.
It is really hard. If you've been doing it all your life, it's so hard. But it feels so good to have self care and take care of yourself. But then I feel guilty
Exactly. Exactly.
because I'm like, why am I taking care of Shay? I got to do this. I got to do that. Like my brain goes crazy because I'm so
Yeah.
used to it. So
Right.
we need to get out of that stigma that it's not, it's, self care shouldn't be stigmatized. I mean, it should be it's healthy to have self-care.
Yeah,
It's okay to be
exactly.
selfish every once in a
Yeah.
while.
And
So
it's okay to buy things for yourself too,
yes,
with that.
exactly.
And it's okay to have nice things. And it's
Hmm.
okay to, to prioritize your own family versus your
Yeah.
extended family and all these other things. And it's okay to say no to people. And we
That
forget
part.
that too.
No is a complete sentence. I had to tell one of our clients recently. No is a complete sentence. You don't have to
Mhm.
explain it, no reasons, no excuses, just like, no, thank you. I'm good.
Exactly.
And what about all the emotional factors? I think we're kind of already talking about it, but like the obligation that it comes with, givers feel compelled to help, especially when the recipient is a loved one. I know I
Right.
struggle with that because when I see a loved one, whether it's my immediate, my family of origin, extended, I don't like to see people struggle.
No.
But I know my husband, especially when it comes to our daughter, he's like, she needs to struggle. She needs to learn that sometimes life doesn't work out. A lot of times it doesn't work out the way you want to. So I
Exactly.
have to, it's hard for us givers not wanting, and we feel an obligation.
We do.
Mm-hmm.
And, with that too, when we have, young people struggling, that is the time you're supposed to struggle when you're young.
Mm,
So, you can pick yourself back up, you can work harder, you can have two jobs, you can do all that extra stuff, you can have roommates. So you don't have to do it later in life. If
yeah.
you struggle early, it is going to take you to that place where when things happen later in life, you've got it because you've been there before. And I know I've had that in my own life. When I went through my divorce from my ex-husband who was military, I tell people this all the time. There's always that period of time that's going to be dark.
Mm-hmm.
But if I had not struggled earlier on in my life,
Mm-hmm.
I would not have been okay living in this teeny tiny apartment with only an air mattress and
Mm,
having, $15 to $20 for groceries a week.
mm-hmm.
But I did it and I never asked for help from anyone. And I was able to do it because I'd had struggles earlier on and I knew what to do.
Oh wow.
And it's
Yeah.
such a gift to be able to do that and know what to do and how to handle the situation.
And so many people can't then they so many people couldn't do what you did because they would be so embarrassed. I couldn't put it on the
Yeah.
gram, like, they didn't want to be able to have people over. It's like we all been there where, you've had the well, not all of us, but some of us has been there where
Yeah.
you're in that apartment with hardly any furniture. You can't,
Hmm.
like you said, you can't afford to really feed yourself. Like, yeah, I've been there too, and it's hard.
Yeah.
So, and I wouldn't say I was in that struggle before, but during that struggle and learning it and experiencing it and the sacrifice of it all made me not want to go back to that.
Right.
So, like, yeah, I ain't doing eating these ramen and Eggo waffles for the whole weeks on end rest of my life. I don't want to go back to that.
Right.
So
Exactly.
so yeah. And then, the fear of conflict is another one. Saying no, as we've already talked about, can be
Hmm.
uncomfortable and strain relationships. Me saying no to some of my family members has caused silent treatments, angry reactions, and totally don't hear from them for years on end. Like, it's
Hmm.
gotten crazy because of the no. But hey, I was afraid to do it, but it was necessary.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had this with my sibling, the same thing. It's one of those situations where there are people out there who are so good at manipulating circumstances that they can be as nice and kind until they hear the word no.
Mm,
And then they just change and they want nothing to do with you anymore.
yeah.
And you're a horrible person because you said the N word,
Yeah.
so because it's like, no, no is okay to say. And
It
some people
really
need to
is.
hear that word.
They do.
There are a lot of people out there who have never heard no before,
I
and it
love
is
that scene in
okay.
Wicked when Ariana Grande is told no or she doesn't get her
Yeah,
way and she gets
yeah,
so damn dramatic about it. It's like, but some people, I know
yeah,
people have gotten
exactly.
that dramatic,
Yeah,
Vanessa, about, they're like, oh my God, I can't believe you
I
said
know.
no to me. Oh my God, I didn't get my way. When she does that scene, I so can relate. I mean, I really could. I'm like, oh my God, it's so dramatic, but it's some people are just like that because they've gotten their way all their lives. And then when they're finally told no, and
Hmm.
we are enabling and hindering our children and our family members by not teaching them no.
Exactly, exactly.
I mean, it
And
started in our generation when they were giving everybody damn trophies.
I know, I
Hello,
agree with
because it
you.
should have been like, no,
Mm.
your behind did not win a trophy for eighth place. Like, no.
8 out of 8. That's what I did. But it's the truth. It's the truth. It's okay to not win. We need to know how to take that
Yes.
defeat. We need to know how to not get that, the promotion or the raise or, all these things that happen in our lives. We need to be able to handle them.
Yes.
And you're right. There's so many people who are our age and younger that can't. They can't handle
They
those
go
situations.
crazy
Yeah.
hearing the word
Yeah.
no. They're
Right.
like, oh my God,
Yeah.
like the world is about to end. She just told
Yeah.
me no. Yeah.
I will tell you. So my step niece just got married last
Oh,
weekend,
wow.
and
Congratulations.
she married a guy who's in the Air Force. So they're
Hmm.
going to Germany together. But she messaged me one day and she was like, "Can you believe it? My dad's not paying for my dress, and he's not paying for this, and he's not paying for that." And she was like, "And he makes the same amount my mom makes because they're divorced."
Hmm.
And I was like, "Well, do you realize your dad's still paying child support for your sibling, and he has a
Mm.
house payment, and he has a new spouse and stepchildren and all these things?" And it's like,
Hmm.
and you're 19 and got married on a whim. So it's like there wasn't time to plan for these
Yeah.
things. And it's like, I was telling her, I was like, when that happened for me, I had to pay for all my own
Me
things. Like,
too. I had to pay for
it's
my
not
own
an
stuff. Yeah.
expectation these days for most people that their family's going to handle everything. But I was like, she's going to have a real learning curve, marrying somebody in the military.
Yeah. 'Cause you could say they tell you no a lot.
Exactly,
Her husband's gonna be
exactly.
coming home because he's gonna be told
Oh,
no a lot.
yeah,
Yeah. But
yeah,
I'm glad she's learning at 19. It's not 29 or 59.
exactly,
So
exactly.
that's just part of the process, you know. And then also desiring to feel needed, helping others can provide us with the purpose, which can lead us to help us making enabling decisions.
It buys relationships sometimes.
That part,
And
yeah.
that's, like I said, that's happened in my family. It's like, oh,
Hmm.
well, if they come by, I get to see them and we get to spend time together and I can give them that money for whatever they need. But it's like, is that really the kind of relationship you want?
Exactly. Yeah, I see that with family members. Like, in the only way they'll get their grandkids to come over and like, oh, I'll buy you lunch, I'll buy you dinner, and
Hmm.
it's like they should just be wanting to come over just to come over, not because you're buying them their food. And
Exactly.
now they've set this expectation, so when they come over my house, they're like, Aunt Shay, do you have this? Like, I ain't your grandparents. Don't be coming over here only to get food. You better come over here and spend some time with me. So yeah, and if people want to
Hmm.
feel needed, and it's sad. I mean,
Me too.
that's part of us as humans. It's part of our
Hmm.
fabric. So we just gotta realize how to deal with that.
Yeah. And there's so
Yeah.
many other ways to do it and to
Yeah.
feel needed and be part of something
Hmm.
without doing it over and over again for the same
Exactly.
person who is not helping themselves.
Or that whole thing, oh, they'll change, right?
Right.
Givers believe their help will inspire the
Hmm.
receiver to change, but the receiver has to be held accountable. There's the A word that we keep
Exactly.
using, accountability. That's lacking all across everything.
Right. Yeah. Because if it's always going to be there, why change?
Yeah,
If,
exactly. You
if
don't
you're
set the
always going to get it
expectation,
figured
no
out, exactly,
boundaries. Yeah,
why change? Because there's no need to. The change
exactly.
happens because it's not there
It's
anymore
not there
and you
anymore.
have to.
Yeah, exactly. Ugh, crazy.
It really, really is. And then sometimes we see this with this imbalance of wealth too.
Mm,
If somebody has more than others, or there may be this whole expectation because you do have more that you have to take care of others, or, there's a reliance because somebody has more. I think we've both seen this in our families too.
yeah.
Somebody has more, even though they're not, overly wealthy or whatever, just because
Mm,
somebody has something extra, everybody else wants it or thinks
yeah.
they can afford it. But a lot of times they don't understand what it takes to get there
It's the
and the
hard
behind
work
the
and
scenes.
sacrifice,
Yeah.
self control, and discipline that they don't
Yeah.
have. And then they think they're going to come in my world and use what I got when I did all of this. And you're going to skip all those steps and take advantage of my blessings. Like,
Hmm.
no, you better go somewhere and go get your own. Like,
Well,
that's
and
real
sometimes
talk
you
right
don't
there.
have it,
Like, yeah,
Sometimes you don't have the money if you're
yeah,
the wealthy one.
yeah.
There's this whole thing like my grandmother used to say my mom was rich. And I'm like, no, mom has like car payments and a house payment, and she had a business. And so, because my mother had a business, she was rich.
Oh,
But the reality was, she was paying 30 employees. And,
mm-hmm.
there's all these things people don't think about. They just think, oh, you have this, so you've got to have money. And the reality is most people don't. They're living paycheck to paycheck just like everyone else. But there's that outward view of they have more. And the reality is a lot of times they don't.
They don't. It's like the military, right?
Hmm.
A lot of people to this day still like, well, you're in the military, so you're rich. No, just because we're going to these fancy quote unquote countries and states and got a house and we got food, that's the least they can do, right? So it's not that we're rich. It's just part of the whole process of being in the military. Like it's
Yeah.
not. We're most of the people are struggling.
They
So
really are. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And I think, when you look at paychecks and you look at moves and all those things too that cost extra, then you'd be like, okay, yeah, I get it now.
yeah,
But until
exactly.
you've lived it, you don't understand it. You
You
just
don't
think it's this
understand.
magical time.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, we also need to look at financial literacy too with
Hmm.
all this. And people who are lacking financial literacy, there may be this unintentional reliance on others for support, and it's just because they don't know. They don't know better. They think,
Hmm.
oh, so and so can always figure out a way to make more money, but I have no clue. Well, you
Yeah.
know what? Maybe there's some stipulations in there that if we help you,
Mm,
you have to sit down and have a conversation or learn about money,
yeah,
because that's going to help more times over than just giving somebody, $20 or $100 or whatever it is.
exactly. Teach them how to fish.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I have a cousin that I helped with a mortgage, and that was one of the rules when we first set this up. He had to have a budget. We
Mm,
needed to know exactly what he could afford,
mm-hmm.
if it was doable. He had to follow that budget monthly, and I'll tell you, it worked in the beginning, but but later on, not so much. But having those things kind of set up and having those conversations at least puts people in the right mindset too.
Yeah, send them this way. Crusaders for Change. We can help you. Say, if you want some money from me, you got to go meet with Crusaders for Change. I don't know,
Exactly.
something, but people need support and they need literacy. They need education.
Right.
So, yeah. And then there's this dependency on loans and gifts, right? Some people
Hmm.
use loved ones as financial crutch rather than necessarily changing thing like downsizing and adding more income to your balance, to your spend plan, your balance, your budget. People are out here just
Yeah.
trying to live their great lives. And I mean, that's why a lot of people's like, oh, I was talking about this earlier with somebody. Like,
Hmm.
just because you got a big house and a car don't mean you're rich. It's probably got a bunch of loans, your credit cards,
Exactly.
so people out here are really struggling, but they're dependent on their loved ones as a crutch. And that's not cool because, again, as we keep saying, those loved ones that quote unquote have it together may have, savings and are responsible, is the word I always use with my family. Don't what is the word I always say? Don't penalize me for
Hmm.
being responsible. And that's
Exactly.
how I feel like they penalize me
Hmm.
or they talk
Hmm.
bad about me or Shay, and they think they no, 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 no. Like we've been working our behinds off to
Right.
get where we are. And it's because we're responsible. We're not out here spending all our money on crazy stuff.
Yeah,
So,
and that is so true.
yeah.
There is this whole like being penalized for that because I feel
Mm-hmm.
that way too. It's like, oh well, you're going to do the right thing, so you don't need X, Y, Z, or I'm going to leave money to this person because you don't need it. And it's like, why am I being penalized,
That's
or why
not
is this person
fair.
being penalized
Yeah.
for making good choices?
Yeah.
And it takes a second because you're like, okay, so if I made bad choices, I would get more out of people. Maybe I just need to not
You know
do what
what?
I need to
I've
do.
I've had that mindset back in the day.
Right,
Like maybe I
right.
should be more like my some of my siblings
Yeah.
were and are,
Yeah.
so I could get
But
yeah,
it's
and they'll
crazy to
pay for
me.
all my kids to do this. Well, my kid to do this. Their kids get more because Shanae's
Yeah,
gonna take care of Alana. So we'll just wait a minute. That's not fair to Alana. Like, what are you doing right now? Like,
exactly. Exactly.
yeah.
Or, leaving someone out of an inheritance
Oh
because,
God.
they're doing well. It's like, okay, so you're matching everybody up, sure, when all that is done. But the reality is the people who have not worked hard for things and haven't sacrificed, it's gonna be gone in a year. It's going to be gone in a year. And that person that knows how to make responsible choices and decisions, they would have kept it there for years and years to come.
There's a
So it's like,
parable
yeah,
in the word about that. Remember Jesus, he was like, or somebody was gonna give it to the person that I'm messing this parable, this scripture all up. But that exact example you shared right there is in the Bible, and it talks about how you should give to those that are more responsible versus they're out there crazy. So
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
And then let's talk about no emergency savings. I think we did a whole episode on this, but even a
Hmm.
small unexpected expense can lead a person to rely on others. Encourage them to save and be prepared. I mean, how many times we talk to our clients about it, our families, like,
Yeah.
yeah, and they're like, everybody always gives me this excuse. Well, when I save, I have to use it. Duh. Like, that's what it's there for.
That's what you
Like,
save for. Exactly.
it's like And
Exactly.
I was like, eventually you get to the point where it can sit because your life is
Mhm.
kind of cool down, and you don't have to worry about it. But
Mhm.
that's what the savings there, because then you don't have to
Yeah.
call your family. You don't
Right.
have to get a loan. You have to use your credit card because you had the savings.
Right. Right.
So you need to
Or
save, people.
right. Or you hear that phrase, I just can't catch a break.
Oh,
There's just always
yes.
something going
Vanessa.
on. And
Vanessa.
it's the world is out to get me. And
Oh my
it's like,
God. I'm so
okay, the
sick of
world is
hearing
not
that.
out to get you. We all go through this. It's just how we handle it sometimes. And, I have to pay for this and I have to pay for that, just like you do. I mean, I went to a doctor's appointment one time and didn't have insurance. And I think my bill was like $300, $400. It was crazy. And, the girl was like, I guess you want us, set up a payment plan. I was like, no, I'll just pay for it.
Yeah.
And I remember her looking at me and she's like, I wish I could just pay for it. And I was like, well, so that's why you have an emergency savings, because things like this happen. So
Yeah.
I've planned ahead of time for things like this. And it's like, if you ever want to have that conversation, call me. We can talk about those things.
Exactly. And
But
side
you
note,
give up.
sometimes it's
Yeah.
cheaper to pay without using insurance, but we're
I
not going
agree
to
with
go
that
into that
100%.
because
And I do that
that's
often.
crazy world. So, and then there is
Hmm.
power in stepping back from others. Sometimes Jesus withdrew from crowds to pray, as in Luke 5:16. So sometimes you just need to be still
Yeah.
and know God, and He will, and just talk to Him.
Mhm.
God's like, I want you to talk to me about every little thing to big thing. So if you're struggling, you need to have a conversation with God.
And you can step back and you can step out of that relationship for a bit and be not as close to that person as you
Yeah,
were,
exactly.
um, for your own mental health and
Mm,
well-being and financial well-being at that
yeah,
too. So it's okay to kind of not, I guess, maybe just separate yourself for a bit
yeah.
and remove yourself from the situation and back up and just take a break. I do that with people all the time. I take mini breaks from people.
You
And
have to.
it's like, okay, I'm gonna take a break for a little bit
Mm,
and just kind of, do the minimum that I have to do, for my sanity and my health. And it's okay to do that with someone who is using and abusing you financially too.
yeah, that part. And get off social media.
Yep.
I'm gonna say
Yep.
that. Stay out. You need, when you get to take a break for them, don't go. You be like, oh man, I can't believe they're doing it. Just get off social media, okay?
Right.
And then I'm gonna say here in 2 Thessalonians 3:10, it says, "For even when we were with you, we gave you this rule: the one who is unwilling to work shall not eat." Amen. That part. Any final thoughts?
I would just remind everyone that it's okay to say no to someone, and saying no can be a blessing because even God doesn't tell us yes all the time.
And when God says no, you need to listen.
Exactly.
And I'll end on that. Thank you guys for another great episode. We're excited. A big thank you for listening to this episode. We hope you found today's chat about the intersection of religion and money insightful. We would love to hear your feedback. Hit that subscribe button or follow the podcast. And please feel free to leave us a review.
Yes, and for the latest Yahweh's Money content, visit us at crusaders4change.org or find us anywhere you listen to podcasts. Until next time, stay financially fit and spiritually inspired.
And remember, it's always better Yahweh's way.